These times are strange, it's quite surreal. It's never been like this. Remember in the good old days when we could hug and kiss. We'd pack the gyms and restaurants and move through public settings. We'd give high fives and drink at dives, hold hands and dance at weddings. Now the days are longer, yet they're darker in a way. We're pressing pause on normalcy, just going day by day. But we can still make jokes and art, garden, dance and sing, cook, read books, try on fun looks and learn about new things. We can talk with friends of ours and have a heart to heart, just so long as we'll stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical, so step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.
Hi, everybody. Hello, and welcome to 6 Feet Apart Productions anniversary show. It's so lovely to be here.
I'm wearing my 6 Feet Apart t-shirt. Everyone, happy birthday to us. We've decorated the room. We have cupcakes. We even have a few balloons. It's a party. Who could believe it's a year later? We're so happy that you're here to celebrate with us. The way the show is going to work tonight is a bit different than our typical show. We have some of our storytellers who've been with us over the course of the year, and we're going to do interviews with them, and then each one will do a short story as well. And we've got some bloopers at the end and some other surprises coming. So thank you so much for being here. We also will be putting up a donation tip jar. If you'd like to support the stories and support the storytellers, I believe our tech guru is going to be putting that information up. I think I'm supposed to say the word donation. Donation, Mark. Oh, there it is. All right. Okay. That is the information. We'll also be sending you out an email in case you've already started drinking and you can't remember that. That's completely fine. Wow, that was quick, Mark. Really, we do want people to donate. So we could maybe keep that donate up just a little bit longer. Okay. Thank you again for joining me. And I am going to pass this over to my other half, Claire Hennessy.
Hi everybody. I'm so pleased you're all with us. And now what I want to do is bring to you our backstage audience, who are the star-studded storytellers, award-winning storytellers that we're going to be interviewing today. Hi everybody. Now we have got everybody here. We're so thrilled. So who am I going to go to? Hi Corey, how are you?
I'm great. So happy to be here.
Now, Corey is going to be doing us a song live during the performance. So hang around for that, because he's going to make up as he goes along. And they're fabulous and wonderful, and I can't wait to get it. So stick around for that. And we've also got Julia Mark here. So Julia, wave so everyone can see you.
Hello.
Julia is the musician who sings our 6 Feet Apart Productions song at the start of the show, and she has been very kind to let us use that all this time. So
I'm so glad that you can use it.
No show is perfect unless you've got your own theme song. Sorry, Jessica. So I ought to bring in Jessica now. Jessica's from Better Said Than Done. She also produced the Women's Storytelling Festival, which was phenomenal last weekend. So I'm surprised she's even here, because she must be exhausted.
Yes, I'm very tired, but I love 6 Feet Apart Productions so much that I gave up sleep just for you guys.
She's also jolly sarcastic, so we're going to ignore her now. And hi, Brandon, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Can't believe it's been a year, and yet it's been a long year and a short year at the same time.
It has. And Mary Karuba, now all of you, well, most of you should know Mary Karuba, because she was the one, that's her fault that we started this in the first place. Hi, Mary. It was her idea, and she pushed Regina and I come on, we can do it. and then she buggered off and left us to it. Didn't you, Mary?
Well, I'm very happy to see that you've kept this up for a year and done a beautiful job. And I love that tribal phallic symbol that you're using for the show.
It's good, isn't it? It's good.
Gorgeous. Little
You
bend.
need to have a phallic symbol for every show. You said blow up toys in the house. Yes. And hi, Bill. Bill's also got the hat on.
Hello.
You haven't got little bells and whistles on it, though. I'm quite surprised. No candles?
It's just there's dirt, plenty of dirt on it.
Because you've been off hiking with your wife, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Also, because I've never washed it.
Oh. That's too much information, sorry. And Diane Falad, how lovely to have you here too. You've got a beautiful hat on because you're so lovely.
Oh, yes, darling.
Well, very nice. Lovely hat.
Glad to be here. Time flies when you're having fun. 1 year went by already. Golly.
I know. I can't believe a whole year's gone past. And well, it's been actually lovely for me because I get to meet all of you and you've all been so wonderful that I would never have met you otherwise. So in some ways, it's been lovely.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Lovely.
Actually.
And Sheila, how lovely to see you. Take a time out of your busy life to come and visit us. And are you well?
You're on mute, honey. Sure, Sheila.
You mean you didn't hear all the things I just said? I'm not repeating them. You know, if you didn't catch it the first time around, you just don't get it the second time around. I'm really glad to be with you all. It's so great to have connected, and this year thing is amazing that we've all been through it, and I think we still got a lot more life in us. So that's kind of fun.
Yes, definitely. And we're going to carry on, even if people are meeting in public. We're still going to carry on, aren't we, Regina?
Yes. Absolutely.
So, hi, Sharma. Thank you for joining us as well.
Yeah, I elbowed my way backstage.
We love having you here.
When I got back from Mexico and I thought storytelling was all over and you were just coming up and I got to tell, it was wonderful. So that's why I wanted to be here at this anniversary time. I'm here every time. It's just great. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you, Sharma. And hello, fellow Brit, Mr. Simon Brooks. Nice hat. Like it.
Well, when I saw everybody else with their hats on, especially with Bill with his, I thought I had to put one on.
Well, a jolly smart one it is too.
Yeah, I have a few I can draw upon. They're not as fun as yours, though, I have to say, Claire.
You're not.
I think you. Well, I don't know. Regina's got a pretty smart one on as well.
It's pretty lovely. Regina's hat is the best, isn't it? But this is just my first hat.
Oh, so you have hats for the different storytellers as you go through the evening. Wow, I'm impressed.
And hi, Kate, and hi, JP. Don't want to leave you out. How are you guys?
Hello. Well, I'm doing fine, and I like the fool's cap. I think it's fabulous. And you really have been the jester of tales, bringing us through month after month. I really loved, listening and viewing all the stories and feel very, very happy to see the end of this year and to have been part of 6 Feet.
Oh, well, thank you, Kate. You've been.
I feel like we're closer than 6 feet, and I hope someday we'll actually be able to hug.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
I ain't touching none of you.
So you and Bill left, ain't touching nobody.
And I just also want to say hello to Kirk Waller, sitting there very quietly and politely. How are you, Kirk?
I'm doing good. It's so nice to see you and see everybody here. And, I was just thinking, who would have thought a year later we'd still be in this thing, but it looks like we're coming out. And I think your stories have just made such a nice touch. It really is something I look forward to. And so thank you all for doing this.
Oh, thank you, Kirk. And you are going to be near enough to be hugged, so just watch out. And you all right, JP, down there in the corner?
I'm not in the corner.
Oh, you're in my corner. Perhaps you're not. You're sort of an edge, maybe.
Did I do something wrong? Am I going back to the corner?
I like having JP in my corner. I'm good with that.
And I just have to say the bar is so low that, like, I have this thing where I pick somebody in the gallery to stare at, and I wonder if they can tell I'm staring at them. And at this point, I start to feel creepy myself. So I apologize if I'm.
We're going to shut you up now. Stop that. You're going to be creepier than Jessica. Stop it. And we don't want to forget our YouTube audience. Thank you very much. Misty, I see you've come and joined us. So obviously my teasing today on Facebook worked. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. We're getting lots of hat love, I would say, in the chat. So go back and have a look at the chat later. And tell us where you're from and what you're doing and what you're wearing at this moment. And we'll come back periodically into the YouTube and have a look and see what's happening. Okay, everybody, we're going to say goodbye to you now because we're going to start our show. So thank you for all being here. Thank you for being our lovely, lovely storytellers. And we're so looking forward to hearing all your interviews and stories as we go forward. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, all of our storytellers. So wonderful to see you. And I'm so happy to get to introduce our first interview and our first short story. As Claire said, she was the driving force behind it, and she pushed us out of the nest. And I'm so glad she's here, that she found the time to come join us again, come back from whence we came. So please, a very warm welcome. She, by the way, emceed. She was on our first show. She emceed 2 other shows, including the Margot Lightman special. So she was very involved right at the beginning and then disappeared into a witness protection program of some kind. So we're happy that she's bubbled back to the surface, and let's hear what Mary Karuba has to say.
Yay.
Mary Karuba, welcome back to 6 Feet Apart Productions. We're so happy to have you here as part of our anniversary show because you were there at the beginning. You were the driving force, the brilliant idea that pushed Claire and I along, and then you pushed us out of the nest and off we went. We're going to ask you some questions, and some of them silly and most of them silly. So the first question, I'm sure you're going to have a great answer for this, and that is, what's your most hilarious, disastrous, memorable, any of those performances?
Probably the worst was the Ukiah Police Department's annual Christmas party. One guy who had seen me perform and thought it was really funny spent their whole budget on me, and they were furious before I ever got there. Furious, all of them, because and these were all like young crew cut, young cops, and my comedy, my cerebral kind of comedy just was not really cut out for them in the first place. And then the guy spent the whole budget on me, and they all wanted the guy they had for the last 3 years, a comedian called the Dick Master. So what they were looking for and what I had to offer was very different. And that performance, I would rack up as my worst hell gig ever. 45 minutes of people giving me dirty looks, talking to each other, never quieting down, not applauding when I got done. I mean, it was just hellacious. And at one point, about 20 minutes in, I was sort of speeding through my material, and I realized I had 25 minutes left because I sort of surreptitiously looked down at my watch, and I was going to quit right on stage and say, you know what, clearly this isn't working out. I'll give you your money back. Thank you very much. And then I thought, to hell with them. I'm going to do my whole 45 minutes and take that paycheck. And I don't care if they like it or not. And they didn't. And it was devastating. And the person that went to the show with me, I only looked at her one time because I caught a glimpse of her once in the audience about halfway through the show. And I'm not exaggerating. She looked like this in the audience, just like, so that was the worst.
With that in mind, then, my next question is, from your wiser older self, what advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah, well, the whole younger self, older self advice thing is so interesting because you have to go through all the hellacious experiences of youth in order to get the wisdom of old age. So if older me had said anything to my younger self would say, hey, mind your own business. I know what I'm doing. You know, my younger self would have never listened. So it's really funny to think of 63-year-old mature me trying to give advice to a younger me. But really, if I honestly could give a piece of advice, I would have encouraged me to learn to get to know myself better instead of always sort of performing for the world. Because I've always sort of, even when my house burned down and I'm running down the front steps, escaping with my dog, in my mind, I'm writing a joke as I'm going down the steps. I'm interpreting and translating the experience in terms of how I'm going to describe it to other people. And I've done that so much in my life that my external locus is kind of, this external locus of approval is out here somewhere. And so the pandemic has really taught me to sort of pull in a lot tighter and do the things that are enjoyable to me or that I want to express authentically rather than what I think will please people. But my younger self, like I said, would have just, told me to take a hike. So I had to make all those mistakes.
Oh, that's true. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but you're right. In order to give the advice, you had to go through it. So it's a catch-22, as it were. But in all fairness, Mary, the joke about coming out of your house with your dog and trying to protect her and say, who wants to go for a walk? Who wants to go? That joke just kills. So, well, speaking of pandemics, obviously we're staying at home, and I'm wondering if you made any crazy pandemic purchases, not necessarily for the pandemic itself, but just because you had to buy it and you saw something and, like a picnic table for squirrels, and you thought that would be the best thing ever.
I did buy a picnic table for squirrels. That's true. And those ungrateful squirrels have never even gone near it. They go right past it to the little thing of nuts I have out there. They look at that corn like, what is this, a health food store? Let's head to the nuts. They want nothing to do with my corn on the cob and my adorable little picnic table, which forces them to sit at the table and eat the corn for my amusement. Yeah, to hell with those squirrels.
Well, Mary, we've asked this question of everyone. We're doing some research. It's a silly question, but we have to ask it. Toilet paper roll over or under?
Don't even start with me on this. Listen, I've looked this up. I went back to the original patent for toilet paper because I can't believe that anybody even thinks that it's up for discussion. Of course it's over the top. Of course it's over the top. And if you go back to the original patent, you will see there a very carefully sketched picture of, a drawing, an illustration of the toilet roll with the paper over the top. The only way.
I'm so happy that only you would have researched the question. And you've come out with the right answers.
That's funny. Well, Mary, a joy to have you here. It's so fun. Thank you so much for coming back to us. And we're very excited to have you on the show. We love you, Mary.
Thank you to both of you for what you've done in this last year with the show. It's really been remarkable. And we did start it together, but I'm really big on having an idea and then dropping out as soon as any real work is involved. And so that's pretty much what I did in that case. And you guys just picked that up and have just run with it and really have brought a lot of joy to people over the last year. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are great. So about 1.5 years ago, I adopted a dog, little tiny dog named Bear. And Bear came with a lot of baggage. I liked Bear because I understood Bear. Bear was like me. Bear had a lot of emotional problems, a lot of Bear, are you trying to get up here? Come on. A lot of emotional baggage from the past. This is Bear, by the way. Bear, sorry. And Bear was terrified of men. And whenever she'd be around men, she would bark wildly. She tried to nip at them. She just exhibited a lot of fear and anxiety. So I started carrying around treats with me everywhere I went. And if I saw a friendly guy, I'd ask him, could you just throw a few treats in her direction when we walk by? Don't make eye contact with her, just throw the treats. So she makes that association. Good things happen when men are around. And so we were walking one morning with a friend of mine and Bear in my neighborhood, and I saw this big giant of a guy gardening, and he looked really friendly, gave us a wave. And so I asked him, would you mind throwing a few treats to Bear? Don't make eye contact. He said, great. So he's getting in position to throw the treats when I hear his wife, who's back in their tomato garden, say, Bob, get down on the ground, Bob. You have to be at the dog's level. Now, mind you, Bob is like 6'3" or 6'4". Bear at that time was 5 pounds and about 6 inches off the ground. So this guy gets down on one knee and his wife says, "No, Bob, you have to get all the way down." So Bob gets all the way down on the ground and he starts to say, "Here, puppy." And the wife stage whispers from the tomato section, "Bob, Bob, you have to speak in a higher voice. It's more non-threatening, Bob." So now this giant of a guy is completely prone on the sidewalk with his arm outstretched, not making eye contact with Bear and throwing these treats and saying, "Here, puppy," in the highest imaginable voice. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and I know of Bear's life too. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. And only for you, Mary Karuba, would we research the patent design of toilet paper. You inspired us to do the research. Not that we doubted at all that you were correct, because you were, but I just love that you researched that. That's just so perfect. And it's so you, Mary. And the picnic table for squirrels. Maybe they're just worried about social distancing. I'm not sure. Maybe they'll come around, pour a bunch of nuts on top of that. But yeah, sorry that didn't work out for you. And it's just such a joy, Mary. I'm so glad you're back, and it's always wonderful to see you. So thank you, Mary.
Yes, thank you, Mary. That was just hilarious. I love that story too. Brilliant. So moving on, because we've got a lot of storytellers to get through, our next storyteller is the amazing and wonderful Corey Rosen. Now, Corey, oh, sorry, my party hat's falling. Corey Rosen was our first ever MC on our first ever show. And we were so grateful to him for doing that. And we're really thrilled. He's also got very exciting. So he's going to sing us a song later. So stay tuned, because he's going to come back and sing us a song. And he's got a book that's come out tomorrow, all about storytelling, called Your Story Well Told, which he will show, and we will show the cover later. But it will... you can buy it anywhere, any of your independent bookstores, and that place that mustn't be named that everyone buys from now that the pandemic's happening. So we won't talk about that. But you can go to his website, CoreyRosen.com, and find out, this hat is annoying, isn't it? Find out all about it there. So without further ado then, do go back and have a look at some of his shows he was on. He was the first show and the second show when he told a story. He was on our True Grit, number 16, and he also came on our Celebrate show and sang a very, very funny show that's actually made it into our blooper reel. So you want to go back and check out that. So here he is, Mr. Corey Rosen. So hi, Corey. Welcome.
Hi,
and I'm so happy that you're on our show.
I'm so happy to be here. It's taking me back a year in my life to the very first 6 Feet Apart productions.
I know, we just called you up and I didn't really know you at that point, and I wasn't sure you were going to do it, and I had to get your number and I had to get your email for people like, "Oh God, is Corey going to do it?" And then you said yes. And
well, because I'm not that mean. I don't know if you know that. I'm just not.
You're lovely.
But I was so charmed by you and Regina and the whole crew, Mary, and delighted to be involved and to be able to not only host but also tell a story the following week, which I thought was such a wonderful thing.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. I mean, we're just so happy that you were on our show, so it's great.
Yeah.
And we've got to know you quite a bit because you've been on our show quite a few times. So
I feel very lucky for that, yes.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, like, what has been one of the most disastrous or challenging or hilarious storytelling moment that you've had over the years?
I mean, one that comes directly to mind was your show, where I sang the song for our lovely unfortunate audience member who won me to write a song for her in real time that I did on an instrument that I do not play, the accordion. And so if the what's like the short version? Is it SFPA?
SFAP. So 6 feet apart. Yeah.
So the SFAP, like if you're a real SFAPy, you can go back to, like, I think it was around the holidays.
It was our Celebrate show in December.
It was a wonderful show. and I made up a wonderfully terrible song, but watching it back, I realized the true sensitivity of a microphone. Because it sounded like the most distorted thing you would ever hear. And I would do it just for the audience's sake to understand, but I don't think anybody would want to hear it again. Unless you want to hear it again, then go watch your SFAP celebrate.
I know, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
For people that don't know Corey, well, Corey did this fundraising thing, which if we explain on the show, so go back and get the full history, where he just made up songs for random people, anybody who paid some money for this fund he was fundraising for, and he did one for me, did one for Regina, and they're absolutely brilliant. He's done he's done one for his book launch. Go and have a look for his book launch.
I did.
And the one he did on
coming out March 30th. Yep.
Good, March 30th. And what's it called?
It's called Your Story Well Told, and it is available everywhere. If you want to buy it on Amazon, it is there. If you want to buy it,
we'll put up a link. Don't you worry.
Oh, great.
But the song you did for that is hilarious. But the song you did on our show was hilarious. So
thank you.
Excellent. So another question I want to ask you, Corey, was, and you probably thought about this because you have got young children. But what advice, in your very wise age now, would you give your younger self?
My younger self, great question. I wish that when I was younger, I knew to be patient with myself. I think that I was kind of impatient. I sort of wanted things to happen fast and like right away. Like I just wanted to kind of like get ahead of things. And the more that and granted I'm a little bit older now, but the more I kind of slow down, the better I do at things. And so I think that's some advice that I would give to my younger self, is to basically trust the process. You know, I think Ira Glass talks a lot about being okay. You know, the idea that like when you're starting out with anything, you know, you can't expect to be a concert pianist the first time you sit down. Like you've got to, you know, play a few bars of you know, heart and soul before you get up the nerve to try something a bit more complicated. And storytelling is like that, and most things in life is like, you know, getting through a few writing projects or story things and knowing like, oh, well, I got that one out. And just because it's not great doesn't mean that I'm never going to do it well. And I myself have gotten better and better at things the more that I work at them and try at them.
Great advice. I wish I'd known that when I was younger, not to rush around. I wish I still knew that now, obviously. That would help. I might speak a bit slower. People would actually be able to understand me. That would be nice.
How about you? What advice would you give to your younger self, Claire?
I think just off the top of my head, because I haven't thought about this question, you're not supposed to ask me the question. My is not to care so much what other people think.
Yes. Beautiful. Amen to that.
So Corey, if you were a superhero, what would be your special power?
Oh, great question. So I think if I had a superpower, I would like to be sort of like an Aquaman type thing. I think that the oceans of our world are amazing, and they cover, 70% of the planet or something like that. So I would like to have the ability to hold my breath basically forever, like to live underwater, to be amphibious would be the superpower I would like.
Perhaps to breathe underwater rather than to hold your
breathe
breath.
underwater, yes. Yes.
What a great idea. I know.
That would be the superpower I would choose. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, and one last question, a bit silly. Loo roll, which for you Americans is toilet roll, over or under?
Oh, over. Always over.
Yes. Yeah, Thank you. That is the right answer. There is a right
answer.
Although
I've got a funny family who they seem to be against putting it onto the roll itself. Like I've got a family, they're like, put it on the counter kind of people. I'm the only person in my household that actually like takes a new roll and sticks it on the bloody thing. So I'm the only one who chooses. So it's always over at my house, because otherwise it's just sideways.
Excellent. Well, I'm impressed, Corey. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on our show. And I hope our audience get to know you a bit better.
It's a joy to be involved with this project, to know you, and to even to be here to celebrate your 1-year anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Happy birthday to us. With your help, I must admit. Thank you.
I always thought that I could be a teacher. I thought, I know some stuff. I like to talk. Teaching could be the sort of thing that I could be good at, but I had a problem, which is that I was too lazy. because I thought, okay, well, teachers have to do a lot of work. They have to prepare a lesson plan, they have to be organized, and they have to actually show up on time and all those things. And I thought, that's not for me. Adding on top of that, the thing of like, who's going to hire me to teach anyway? Is it going to be somebody like a proper school? Am I going to teach my own classes? Ultimately, I decided I don't really want to do this, so I'm not going to teach. So one day, I'm doing a storytelling show, something that I like to do, and somebody comes up to me and they go, "You were really good in that storytelling show. Would you like to teach?" And I said, "No, thanks," because that's something that I'd already decided I didn't really want to do. I wasn't that interested. In fact, I have other things, like I have children, for example. And I think if I teach a class, that's time that I'm not going to spend with the people that want to see me at home, that I'm already not seeing most of the time because I work at a full-time job. So they go, "Well, will you think about it?" I go, "No, thanks. Not really interested, but thank you for asking. I'm flattered to be asked." And they said, "Oh, well, that's too bad because it's on your street." And I was a little taken aback because I'm like, "How do you know that?" And then they go, "Well, we're your neighbors." And then we talked a little bit, and I guess they had known me from the neighborhood in a way that I didn't really realize. And I go, "Okay, well, tell me more about your school." Ding. Hole had opened in the barricade that I'd put up to my never wanting to be a teacher. And they said, "Well, it's a school for writing and storytelling, and it's located on your actual street, the actual street where you live, and you could do it anytime that you want." They were making it too easy for me. So 6 weeks later, a classroom full of people sat in a circle, and I began my illustrious career as a storytelling teacher. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Corey. Excellent. I so love that interview. And he's coined the phrase S-fappies. So all you fans are now S-fappies. I love it. And just want to remind you again that anybody who buys his book, I'm sure he'll sign it for you if you want him to, but if you put a picture and tag him on Facebook, he'd love it. So thank you for that. And just as I say, remember, he's going to sing us a song a bit later on in the show, which will be live, and we don't know what it is either, so it's a little scary. Anyway, thank you, Corey.
Thank you, indeed. We're getting a lot of chat in the YouTube, which I love. I have to give a shout out to Christine Little from Maine. She was a elementary school friend of mine who just found me this week. I haven't heard from her in 40 years. She moved away to upstate New York, and then all of a sudden there she was, and now she's watching the show. So Christine, thanks for being here. I'm glad we reconnected. And Misty, thanks for the compliment on the hat. I do appreciate that. I put in a lot of effort on this. So our next interview and next story comes from a gentleman who was on one of our first shows. It was actually the Bill Lepp special. And he's been on several other shows after that. And he has won the West Virginia Liars contest 5 times, if you can believe that. But I'm not really sure you can believe it because, well, it's the Liars contest. But regardless, when he tells the story, I love that you just get sucked into it and you think it must be true, but you know it can't be, but he tells it so convincingly. And it has been a great fun to have him on the show and to get to know him. And if you want to know more about him, you can go to BillLeppStorytelling.com. And I'm sure all of our storytellers, just Google them, you will find them. But please, next up, Bill Lepp. Bill Lepp, welcome to our anniversary show for 6 Feet Apart Productions. You were with us right in the beginning, and you've been on several shows, and we're pleased and thrilled to have you here for our anniversary show. We want to ask you a few questions, most of them ridiculous, just to get to know you a little bit better. And the first one is, what's the most memorable, disastrous, hilarious moment that you can think of in your storytelling career?
Yeah, that's easy. One of my very first events where I was hired as a storyteller, I was at a festival in Ohio somewhere, I think Athens, Ohio, and Dovey Tomlinson and Bill Harley were there. I had no idea who they were, but they were there. And I got on stage, and it was a cool late September afternoon. So I was wearing several layers of clothes, and I opened my mouth to begin telling. And this little girl in the front row, I wasn't 10 seconds in, she raised her hand to ask me a question. And at the same time, I could feel that there was something physically off about my body. I couldn't figure out what it was. I didn't have enough experience on stage to, look around and figure out what it was. So the whole time I'm telling stories, 15-minute story. This little girl's got her hand raised, way up above her head the whole time the interview is going on. And but I just ignored her. I ignored her. Finally, I got done and I said, yes. And she said, your fly is open. And not only was my fly open, but my shirt tail was sticking out of it. So that was one of the most, if not the most embarrassing moment I've ever had on stage.
Oh, Bill, that's so funny. So where's the strangest place that you've told a story?
I think, the first place I ever got paid to tell a story outside of this is a two-part answer. Outside of the Liars Contest, the first time I got hired to come somewhere and tell stories was at a buckwheat pancake festival. And there was a buffet going by. And I stood on a milk crate speaking into a microphone, handheld, that the wire was run into a record player. So that was the whole sound system while people walked by not paying attention. So that was my first time. So, that gave me a lot of room for not to judge what's weird. But definitely the strangest place was there was a storytelling festival for a long, long time in George West, Texas, called the George West Storytelling Festival. And it was one of those festivals where there's venues spread out all over town. And one was at the funeral home. And I stood where the coffin usually rests during a funeral to tell stories.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Well, here's a question, Bill. If you could have dinner with 4 people, living or dead, who would you pick?
I was been pondering on this since I read over the questions like an hour ago. But I think the answer to that is today, the day of this recording, is the 1-year anniversary of the last time I did a show that was not COVID, in the COVID umbrella. So I was at the Azalea Storytelling Festival last year. In fact, about now I was probably getting home. And I coming home, I was just kept thinking, this is, they're going to shut this down for a while. We're not going to be able to do this for a while. And so I was thinking of all the people living or dead who I'd want to have supper with. And I think the answer comes down to, besides my family, who I eat supper with all the time, if I could sit with like Kevin Kling and Carmen Dede and Andy Offit Irwin, or really some combination of storytellers, that would be fantastic. Because for one thing, it would mean things are back to normal. But one of the things I know that I've learned most that I took for granted in life, and I try not to take things for granted, but definitely just the idea that 50 weekends a year, 40 weekends a year, I was going to hang out with the greatest storytellers in the world every year for the rest of my life, is something that I definitely took for granted. And I really, really miss hanging out with all those other tellers. So I think I would pick 3 tellers, and probably the 3 that would most offend the rest that I didn't invite them.
Excellent. And a real quick thing, apart from lying, what if you were a superhero, what would be your special power?
Yeah, see, my favorite superhero is Batman, who of course doesn't have any superpowers. So I go with that angle. He's just a billionaire. So I think that would be my power. I'd just be a billionaire vigilante.
I like that. I want to be a billionaire.
Yeah. And then if the superhero thing doesn't work out, still a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question, which is a very silly one, but we've asked it of everyone, and that is toilet paper, over or under?
Oh, okay. This shows that I've been married for a long time. If you had asked me this question, let's say 28 years ago, I wouldn't care. Didn't know there was a difference. But one time I was in a public restroom after I'd been married for, 4 or 5 years, and they were out of toilet paper. And so there was a roll, sitting behind me on the toilet. And so I unwrapped it and I thought to myself, I'm going to hang this up so the toilet paper comes off the bottom instead of off the top. And no one will ever know, because in our house, we're all conditioned it comes off the top. And so I hung it so it came off the bottom or the back. And I left the bathroom knowing my wife would never know. And then I honestly went back and replaced it just in case something weird happened and she went in there.
Oh my God. In case somebody went in there and then came out and said, oh my God, you would not believe. And your wife overheard and looked at you and was like, Bill.
She would have known. Yeah. Yeah.
She's absolutely right. It has to be over. I'm sorry. That's a, you know.
Of course she's right, but that doesn't make her right.
Oh, thank you, Bill. And I can't tell you how much we appreciated you being on our show.
Well, thanks for having me. And thanks for keeping this up the whole time.
Crazy, I know.
But I applied to Kentucky Fried Chicken because, you know, I wanted to work somewhere nice, not at Hardee's, unless, of course, Hardee's is a sponsor. And then, yay, Hardee's. And it took me about 8 months of consistently applying at Kentucky Fried Chicken to get a job. Not because I don't have the skill set necessary to work at a Kentucky Fried Chicken, but again, because most of the jobs in the county were held by full-grown adults. But I finally got the job at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I have to tell you, even after all of these years, that it was one of the best jobs that I ever had in my life. I think everyone should have to work in some sort of service industry at some point in their life because it teaches us a lot about ourselves and about other people. Like my daughter came home from Sunday school before Easter, just before Easter, when she was a lot younger than she is now. And I asked her what they did in Sunday school, and she said that they did feet washing. And I said, oh, what did you learn from that? And she said, humiliation. And I thought, yeah, we should all work in the service industry. Now, one of the reasons that job was so beautiful is, let me just describe a typical day. I would go in and I would put on my apron first thing. Now, I always wore the same apron. And then the first thing I would do is I would take the big bucket of heavy chemicals and I would go out to the parking lot and I would pour those chemicals on the oil and antifreeze stains that were on the asphalt. Then I would take a hose and I would wash those stains and those chemicals into the creek where they would never be seen again. And then I would go inside and I would go to the we had this huge deep fryer. And underneath of it all, there was this drawer that you could pull out, sort of like the drawer on the bottom of your oven, except this is where all of the little things that fell off the chicken as they were frying would sift through this screen and some of the oil. All of that would go down and finally catch in this big repository. And I would pull out that drawer. We'd let it go like a week. And it was just full of this barely liquid brown sludge. And I would take a saucepan and I would scoop up one solid saucepan of that and put that on the prep table because that's what we made the gravy out of. And then I would take the rest and I would take it out beside the dumpster. There were 2 big blue 55-gallon drums. And I would pour that sludge into those drums. And then when that got rancid, about once every month maybe, a truck from Revlon would come and pick up that sludge. And from that, they made lipstick and mascara. So if you've ever been applying your mascara and suddenly thought to yourself, oh, I'd really like some fried chicken. Now you know why.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that. Oh, I don't know. I'm hoping that's a lie and not a truth, but it sounds like it could be a truth. But Bill Lepp, thank you for that. That is hysterical. I'm going to bring up our donation screen. That's the key word. Yes, up there just a little bit longer, Mark. It was because if anybody is like me, there's no way I can get out a phone or write it down. I'm looking for a piece of paper, but as I said, it will be up a few more times. But if you any donations are going to be to support our storytellers and storytelling. So thank you so much for your generosity and of course for supporting 6 Feet Apart for this wonderful year. Thank you. Thank you, Bill Lepp.
Thank you. And if you want to hear the rest of that story, which is hilarious, go to our show. I think it's number 5. It is our Bill Lepp special. It's on YouTube and you can watch it free. So thoroughly recommend you go and do that. Now, our next storyteller is the amazing Diane Falad. Now, she's won more awards than I've had hot dinners, and she's also been Grammy nominated, so she's amazing. She's been on our show for 2 Black Lives Matter specials, and her stories were so moving. Definitely go back and watch those. She came to Anticipation Nation as well, so really go back and have a look at some of those stories, because she is a master storyteller. She did tell a beautiful story about Henry Box Brown just recently for National well, I think it was the show we had in February. So go back and have a look at that. So here to tell some very funny interview questions and to tell a story is Diane Falad. So hi, Diane. It's so fabulous to have you back on our anniversary show. We're delighted to have you back.
I'm glad to be back.
Excellent. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions so that people can get to know you a bit better. So my first question is, can you tell us from your many, many storytelling moments, have you got a particularly memorable one or a hilarious one or something that was a bit challenging that you'd like to share?
Well, I have a lot. We had a sponsors dinner, and it's fancy. People who pay so much money for a table. It's really fancy. And the white tablecloth, they had all the servers are lined up, their aprons on, and they can't move until they give them the signal to move. And they came out serving, and they had a small stage in front. And some people, with the way they were sitting in the chairs, had their backs, because there were round tables, they had their backs to the stage. And so they had a storyteller and then music, a storyteller, then a musician coming up and played music, a storyteller and music. And a lot of times the audiences kept their backs turned. The ones who had their backs turned, they could listen to the story. They were just talking and eating and talking, whatever. But I came up on the stage. The people that they had their backs turned and went, they immediately turned their head to hear what I was saying. And they stayed the whole time looking at me like, is this true? What is she saying? So I saw the change. Those who were kind of like half listening and half eating, and the music and the story, nice, very, very nice. But when I start talking, they all turn their head toward the stage.
Nice.
I think we can all agree, Diane, that when you talk, people will listen. How about, can you describe, or what would your perfect day be? Can you describe a perfect day, say in 30 seconds?
My perfect day is waking up. It's waking up in the morning, because a lot of people don't wake up. And after being on chemotherapy for almost 10 years, I'm glad to be alive. So when I wake up and see a brand new day, it's perfect. Plus, I'm married to the right man. I've been married to him. Will be 50 years in January.
Wow, Diane.
Yeah. If I wake up, it's a good day.
That's nice. Lovely. And I'm glad you're here too.
Let's see. What type of story do you enjoy telling the most?
Well, I like telling folklore. And I like telling stories that connect with my culture best, because that's what I know best. But I can tell any story that fits my mouth and that I feel that I can tell. Stories I don't understand. I don't understand the language. I don't understand the words they're talking about, the places they're talking about. And if I don't understand the stories that well, I don't tell them unless I do a lot of research to find out what I'm talking about. But I tell stories where I know what I know about, and stories that make me feel something. Oh, okay. I'll tell that one. It has something to say. So I tell any story I can find that fits my mouth. I don't know where it comes from. I don't care where it comes from. If it fits my mouth and I can tell it, I'll tell it.
Well, we like to hear you tell the story, Diane. So one last one, and this is a really silly question, and you have to answer it. Toilet paper, over or under? What? It's a vital question.
Over?
Yes, thank you. That's all you have to say. Well done.
Of course, over.
Of course. I know. I agree.
I know. You're like, I can't even believe you're asking me this question. Of course.
Under? No.
I know. Thank you, Diane. It's a stupid question.
What about the main question?
What's the main question?
Why am I so beautiful?
Okay, I'll do that. All right. Hang on. So Diane, how in the world do you keep your youthful, lovely appearance? Like, what is the regime? What's the secret?
Oh, there is no secret. I was born this way.
Oh, we love you, Diane.
When you got it, you got it.
And so humble. I'm modest. Diane, thank you. We love you, and we're so honoured that you've been on our show, not just once, but twice. And we hope you'll come on it again in the future. And thank you very much for being here today.
Storyteller, storyteller, is it true that lion is king of the jungle? Yes, my child, it is true that lion is king of the jungle. But why is it that every book I look at, the lion always gets killed? It will be that way, my child, until lion tells the story. It makes a difference who tells the story.
Thank you, Diane. It was such a delight to have you on our show. And you are beautiful, I have to say that. And lovely. And married 50 years. That's phenomenal. I'm very impressed with that. It was just great to have you, and lovely to hear a bit more about you, get to know you a bit better. So thank you, Diane.
Yes, thank you. Before I bring up our next interview, I'm going to give another shameless plug for 6 Feet Apart Productions, and that is, finally, we have our swag store. So if anybody wants, a mug, a t-shirt, or, an apron, a coaster, whatever, you can find that by going to sfapshows.com, clicking on more, and then shop. So get yourself some swag, because 30 or 40 years from now, people are going to ask about this, and you're going to be able to explain why in the world did they call it 6 Feet Apart. All right, moving on. Our next interview is with a gentleman who, he's always got a story in his back pocket, and he's been on our show. He was on our first show, and he's been on several of our shows. He's a very accomplished storyteller, and I just love listening to him tell stories. So please enjoy J.P. Frary.
Yay.
JP, welcome. We're so happy to have you on this anniversary show. Yay! Our 1-year anniversary. You were there in the beginning, and now you're here at the 1-year anniversary. So we want to get to know you a little bit better now that we've known you for a year. And the first question I have for you is, what was your most memorable experience as a storyteller?
There's a bunch that come to mind, but the thing that always sticks with me is I told a story about a friend of mine in high school who wanted to come out of the closet, but where we lived and the time period, that wasn't possible. And I just told the story of that struggle, but from the point of view of the straight friend. And after that show, a kid just came up to me, a high school kid, and he hugged me. He did not say a word. He just hugged me. And then he walked off. And a few minutes later, a woman came up and she said, "That was my son that hugged you." And she hugged me. And that was it. I don't know whether he was gay or straight. I don't know what part of that story hit him, but it did. And that hug, that exchange without words, was quite powerful for me.
Oh.
So that's my most memorable.
That's really nice, JP. And how lovely that was in pre-pandemic times when people could actually hug. My most memorable bit was when you cut your hair live on our show. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, that's not even in the top 5.
You're so funny. And one of our questions was, what's been your best or worst purchase? And
so it is my best and my worst purchase. I bought a little convertible. I am the stereotypical middle-aged man with gray hair driving a convertible around. And it is the most fun thing I have ever purchased. It is so fun to drive, and it's zippy and it has no trunk. It is the most impractical car. You can bring a wallet. That's about it.
If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
So I'm not a superhero like comic book guy. And the more and more I thought about it, I thought I would like to have the ability to ice skate on regular land. Oh, yeah. So just at any point, I can just start skating off. and nobody else can do it. You know, they're like, and they all look and see, does he have rollerblades on? No, I just want to be able to skate on land. And like, right after you finish a conversation with somebody, just skate away.
How funny. I think that's probably one of the most unusual superpowers we're ever going to get to hear about.
Great.
Following on from that, then, if there was a movie made of your life, who do you think would play you?
Well, there's only one answer, and that's Nick Nolte.
Yeah, actually, you do look a bit like Nick Nolte.
Yep.
Yeah.
It happens. I'll be pumping gas, and somebody will come up and say, "Are you Nick Nolte?" So, you know, and it is Nick Nolte from his arrest photo. You know, I gotta, like, you know, that's the thing, right?
Like, well, let me see.
Yep, that's it right there.
All right. One last fun question that I believe Claire wants to ask you.
Oh, yes. One last question. Loo roll, is it over or under?
My answer to that qualifies in the fact that I have a bathroom that I maintain at my business and like 50 people use. And I would just say any paper, please don't throw it on the floor. That's it. That's all. I don't care how you do it. It is unbelievable how you will put a fresh roll of toilet paper in and you will find it on the floor. I don't know why they take it out of the thing. I have no idea. That's it. So I have no opinion about over or under. Don't steal it.
You're quite. And have some.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you, JP. That was really great getting to know you a bit better.
They wheeled me into the waiting room outside of X-ray. It was late, very late. And the hospital was mostly empty, but there was another gurney in the waiting room and there was a little old lady on it. I don't know how else to say it. She was old and she was little, late 80s, early 90s. And she kind of had that look where somebody starts sinking in on themselves. And she didn't move her head, but her eyes followed my gurney as they pulled it in. And the X-ray technician said, "It'll just be a few minutes. We'll come and get you." And I said, "I think she's first." And he said, "She doesn't really need an X-ray." And he turned and walked out. And I looked at her and she never moved her head. She just moved her eyes and looked at me and then looked back at the door where the guy had left. And it was just a few minutes. He came and got me and wheeled me in. And he goes behind the glass and is running the X-ray machine as I'm on the table. And he says, "Whoa, dude, I'm not supposed to say anything, but you're definitely getting a cast." And I said, I know. I knew it was broken. And he wheeled me back out into the waiting room and parked me right next to the old woman. And I turned and I looked at her and she again didn't move her head. She never made a sound, but her eyes just tracked over to me. And I said to her, it looks like I'm getting a cast. And she just raised an eyebrow. That was it. And then she looked back straight ahead and an orderly came and got me and wheeled me out of the room. And I never heard her speak. And I have never forgotten her. I don't know what that guy meant by she doesn't really need an X-ray. And it stuck with me my whole life. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. Thank you. I think that is going to stick with me for a while. That's you paint a very vivid picture, and that's what I love about your storytelling. So thank you for that. And toilet paper, don't take it for granted, right? It's one of the joys. Never take it for granted. And by the way, we have a blooper reel at the end of the show, and JP's on there. He did some personal grooming live on air on our Mother's Day show. So you might want to stick around and see some clips of that. Clips, little pun in there. You'll find out later. Okay. Thank you, JP.
Thank you. And you might have noticed I had a few hat changes because I've been waiting for my matching hat to arrive and it just came on the doorstep, but it's a little bit not quite as pretty as Regina's, but it's here. So we now match. So that's much more better, isn't it? rather than having other ones. But now you'll notice there's a third person on the window, and it's our lovely Corey Rosen. Because, hi, Corey.
Hey, everyone. I didn't know I was on already.
And so it's our time to have Corey's song to wish us happy birthday. I'm so excited. So are you ready, Corey?
I am always ready. Are you ready is the thing, because the last time you asked me to do this.
I'm going to light my candle.
Light your candle. And this is a very special SFAP birthday song, custom written just for you. That a birthday induction for 6 Feet Apart Productions, born from a pandemic when most of us couldn't function. Claire and Regina got on Zoom as their arena to share each other's stories. As the host they called up Corey. And now it's 1 year later, Suez Canal's blocked by a freighter, and we are all still Zooming. 6 Feet Apart Productions are booming. We'll all soon get vaccines so that we can hail a taxi to be all together, no matter what the weather. But until then, we celebrate this forum that you did create. So thanks for all the stories. Happy birthday from your old pal, Corey. Happy birthday, 6 Feet Apart Productions.
Thank you so much. Corey, you can blow my candle out.
You got both of them. Woo! Well done. Okay, Corey, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that. But did you work in the Suez Canal on that ship? Did I hear it?
I did.
Oh my God, that was. Oh my! I thought you did, but I thought no, he did not. Just use.
Now it's 1 year later. Suez Canal's blocked by a freighter.
Oh,
yeah.
That is just wow.
Although
Just brilliant.
I think today they got it out. But anyway.
Oh my gosh! Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's so funny, JP. I can't believe it. Corey, sorry, that was so brilliant. Loved it. Can't even get your name right.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
We're so flustered. We're so flustered.
I don't know where I am, coming or going.
No accordion. Next year I'll bring the accordion back.
Yeah. We'll turn the mic volumes down just a little bit. Turn those down. So we're gonna carry on. Oh, I can't wait to go back and listen to that song. That's gonna have to be my ringtone, I think. Very long ringtone. Very, very long ringtone.
I got scared when you lit the candles. I was like, I don't know if they realized they wrote an entire song. I got worried about wax dripping, but I think you had it covered.
Yeah. They were very big candles. Oh, our next interview was with a storyteller and a friend to 6 Feet Apart Productions who, again, was a fan from the beginning.
Sorry, Regina. I'm going to stop you there because it's actually a different storyteller. It's Sheila Arnold.
Oh God, that's right. This is me. This is usually what happens. I have to say, this happens a lot where I just go off on some rambling tangent. I lose track of where I am, and Claire always has to just sort of guide me back. So I do really
too much.
I do appreciate. I do the budgets, and because then for that she tells me when I should just shut up so she can introduce the next person rather than the one I was going to introduce.
Yes, hey. I think I might give Tech Guru a heart attack if you did that. Anyway, so our next storyteller is actually Sheila Arnold. Now, Sheila started Artists Standing Strong Together at the very start of the pandemic, and it is just the most amazing organization. Go and look it up on Facebook. They are now a 501c. They do so much good for storytellers. I can't tell you, there's too much for me to tell you here, but she is the hardest working, possibly, Jessica Robinson maybe, but Sheila Arnold is the nicer person, obviously, than Jessica. I do love Jessica. But no, Sheila's amazing. She's been on our show lots of times. She's told stories. She told a really moving one about her son nearly getting shot on our Black Lives Matter show. Go and watch that. She's emceed our Stories in Black and White when we had Kate Farrell, who will be our next storyteller, come up, and really accomplished MC. And she also emceed our show in February when we had Diane Falad on that one, and she was on our Celebrate show telling a story. So she's amazing, and she works harder than anybody, like I say, and she's brilliant. So go and watch all those shows and enjoy getting to know a bit better Sheila Arnold.
Welcome, Sheila Arnold. We are thrilled to have you here for our anniversary show. And we thought it'd be fun to get to know you a little bit better. You've been on our show several times, and we'd like to just dig a little deeper and find out about you. So we'll start with, what was your most memorable moment as a storyteller? Can you think of one moment that stands out?
Probably my most memorable moment as a storyteller was being at Exchange Place in 2013 at the National Storytelling Festival. It was a place I'd always wanted to be able to perform. And Diane Falad from California, from Oakland, California, my mentor, I asked her advice right before I went on stage. I wanted her words to be the last. And she said, take a moment, look at your audience, and know they are all there supporting you. Mm. And that was, I did just that. I looked at the audience and I could feel the support, and I then told a story I love. So it was great. That's probably one of the highlight moments for me.
I think I might have to take Diane's advice as well the next time that I'm on the stage, virtual or not. I'm going to visualize my audience. Thank you. All right. Thanks.
Diane always has great advice, doesn't she?
She does.
So, tell us, have you got like your most hilarious story or the most unusual place that you told a story or something funny about storytelling?
Well, I got lost going from one storytelling place to another while I was in West Virginia. For one of my early times in Boone County. They told me the directions of how to go, but I had copied the directions out on a piece of paper, so I didn't listen to the people. It was literally, you turn to your right and you go straight down for 20 minutes and it will be on your left-hand side. That's all the directions. That's all I needed. But I had my piece of paper. And so I looked at my piece of paper, and my piece of paper said, turn right. And I have an issue with right and left. So I turned left because I don't know any better. And I ended up a long way away from that place without cell service to be able to call anybody to tell them I was a long way away from the 20-minute place. And then I ended up in a town called, and I'm not lying, ended up in a town called Twilight.
That's perfect.
Sheila, if you could have dinner with 4 individuals, living or dead, past, present, who do you think, who would those 4 be?
I'm selfish enough just to say my mother, my 2 grandmothers, and then I wouldn't bring back just one of my grandfathers because that would just be bad. I wouldn't be able to explain that one. So if I had my mother and my 2 grandmothers, then probably I'd love to have Maya Angelou with us, to sit with us a little bit.
Good choice.
That would be just a wonderful opportunity. I can't imagine sitting amongst all that wisdom and love. And I had a chance to meet Maya Angelou when I was a freshman in college.
Wow.
And so she would be one of those people I would put on the level with my grandmothers and my mother for the wisdom that she gave me. So yes.
And then just a quick one, if you were a superhero, what would your special power be?
Okay, so my superpower would be to change people's words as they're coming out of their mouth. Like as their words are coming out of their mouth, it's about to come out mad, to go whoosh, and their words would instantly change or just be unable, like they wouldn't be able to have the words come out of their mouth because they were going to be, so to know what somebody's about to say, stop them, right, as the words are about to come out. And then when they get it together, then I'll let them go. And I'll let them
Perfect.
go. Know how to say it correctly. I would love to be able to stop some people from talking. Some people would like to be able to stop me from talking. So that's, probably other people's superpower they'd like to use on me. So it's okay.
Your superpower would be a filter. You could just coming out, right?
That's kind of what it would be.
Like the N95 of verbal exchanges is what you can do. That's an awesome superpower.
Yeah, my whole bodysuit would be a filter. It would be that filter for stout women. Full figured stout women filter.
Yeah. Well, that just means there's more filter there to filter. So there you go.
More of a superpower. Exactly.
There is more superpower. Yes, it is.
One more very quick, nonsensical question. Toilet paper, over or under?
I have been asked this question now twice in the last 2 weeks, which is really wild. And I don't know the answer. So this is what I answered my friend. I don't know, but I do know that I roll up my tube of toothpaste.
Sheila, that was fantastic. That's all we got time for. But thank you so much for being a fantastic storyteller, for being on our show, not only telling stories, but also emceeing. And we just love getting to know you a bit better.
And thank you for starting what you started this past year, helping us to be community, because we have a beloved community of storytellers and story listeners, and you've been a big part of that journey. I really appreciate that, ladies.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
I love telling stories, and this is just a small one that I think is very important. There once was a group of people that lived far into the woods, and this group of people, this tribe of people, community of people, had always taken care of each other. They had always been one, and every evening after the meals in their individual homes, they came and sat on the mats around the fire, and they talked to one another. Then one day, a man from a city came their way, lost and tired and feverish. They brought the man in and they took care of him. The man came with a bag of things and this thing upon his chair. When he was well, a thing upon his back called a chair. And when he was well, he sat on the chairs the people sat around. And before he left, able to go back to society, he left as a gift the chair. And when he left, the people wondered what to do with this chair. Well, the chief said he should be the one to sit in the chair because he was the chief. And the chief's wife said she should be the one to sit in the chair because she was the chief's wife and gave birth to the new chiefs. And then there was several adults that felt like they were the ones, they were the elders. And the teenager said, well, they were the ones of the next generation. They should get practice sitting in chairs. And the littlest ones just wanted to sit in a chair every now and then, see what it felt like. Everyone began to argue, and soon enough, no one came to the place after their dinners. No one came to community because it was a place of a chair. And one day, the eldest of the whole community called everyone out one evening, and he said, I know what to do with the chair. And the people said, yes, tell us, we will listen to you. And with that, he picked up the chair and threw it into the fire. And then the people sat around the fire on the ground and continued to tell stories to one another. Thank you so much.
Lovely, Sheila. I just could listen to you all day long. It's wonderful. And just, don't you think that last year was like we all got lost in the twilight zone, didn't we? That's brilliant. Excellent metaphor for last year. And I just love the fact that you're going to sit around with your mum and your grandmothers and Maya Angelou, and I want to be there too, please. That sounds like the best dinner table ever. Anyway, thank you, Sheila, for being on our show and being amazing. You've been fantastic.
Yes, thank you. And now I'm going to bring up the woman who I was going to bring up in the wrong place and made the tech guru have a minor heart attack out in his lair. I'm just so excited to bring her up. She has been a #1 fan. She's been a promoter of us, and she certainly is a storyteller. She has written a book called Storypower, so you can find that at her website. Yay. We have a lot of people who have written books and tell stories and are wonderful people. That's the kind of show we are. She was on, has been on several of our shows, Stories in Black and White, among others. And you can go and find all those on our website as well if you want to see some of these past stories. But I'm really happy that we had the chance to sit down with Kate Farrell.
So welcome. Hi, Kate. It's so lovely to welcome you back on our show. You've not only been a fabulous storyteller, but you're one of our super fans, coming to virtually all our shows.
Well, it's just been such a pleasure. And I've been able to kind of track the seasons through the different themes and different ideas. And you've really risen to the challenge.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So one of the questions we want to ask you was, what is your most memorable event or moment as a storyteller?
Well, I was thinking about that, and it has to be the high stakes storytelling that I pitched to Foundation Board of Trustees. And it was a roll of the dice because this story was supposed to appeal to these guys so that I could continue with the grant, that they would extend it, and therefore I would have a livelihood for myself and for my 1-year-old son. So this was a very scary moment. And I found myself in a splendid San Francisco mansion at a reception with fancy hors d'oeuvres and uniform maids. And I told my story. Everyone knows what a dragon looks like. And they loved it. And I got the grant. And they continued to extend it for 10 more years. And that was a story worth its weight.
Yes, it definitely was. Excellent.
Excellent. That's great. Kate, what type of stories do you enjoy telling most? Do you have a preference?
Absolutely. I love telling ghost stories. It might be because I grew up in the South. And, you know, when I grew up in the South, we barely had radio, and we used to scare one another to death at one another's homes, or we dare one another to lie down in the graveyard on someone's grave under the Spanish moss. And so anyway, a lot of ghost stories are Gothic like that. But the ones I like the best are the ones they call jump stories. When, if you tell it right, someone in the audience is going to gasp or scream or hopefully jump up and run.
I hate ghost stories. I'll have to remember that. I'm not going to come to one of your stories. I have nightmares. So, Kate, can you describe your perfect day in, say, under 30 seconds?
I would love to be in Hawaii on the North Shore of Oahu. I would love to wake up to the sound of the surf and spend my day walking in the sand, gazing out at the wide Pacific, and then swim into the heavy salt surf and float. Coming back after a day of sun and sand and sea to a luau to watch a brilliant sunset and the stars so close.
I've just changed my background because that's what I want to do too.
Absolute heaven. I would love that as well. I would love to join you in that perfect day. Okay, one more question. This is a silly one, and that is toilet paper, over or under?
Over.
Yes, good answer.
That's the right answer. That's absolutely the right answer. Thank you. You can stay.
Oh, good. But on the other hand, if it's toilet paper and it's there, I'm not going to quarrel with it.
Yes, just nice to have it, isn't it? Thank you, Kate. That was great. Nice to get to know you a bit better.
Thank you. This year I'm going to turn 80 years old. And that's a big 10-year celebration and anniversary. And to really celebrate, I want to skip back over all the decades of my life, my long and wonderful life, to the very first 10-year-old birthday. It was summer. My family decided to visit my grandparents, who lived in a small Midwestern town in Illinois, just west of Chicago. My brothers and I were excited to visit because my grandfather owned racehorses, not for the big time and not even with jockeys. His sport was harness racing. The horse pulled a 2-wheeled cart called a sulky with a driver and a whip, and they go around a dusty track. And my grandfather took his horses to all the county fairs around the Midwest. Now, he had started about then naming each one of his horses for a grandchild. But the runaway champion, The horse who won all her races was named for me, KDF. And we couldn't wait to see her race. Finally, the day came, and our grandparents took us to the county fair in Princeton, Illinois. We climbed up on the bleachers in the grandstand, and we watched the race start. KDF took off from the gate, and we saw her go down the dusty track once around the bend, twice around the bend, then 3 times coming around on the home stretch. We saw that she was coming closer to the grandstand and she was in the lead. We were jumping up and down on the bleachers yelling, "Come on, KDF." And as she flashed by the grandstand, she won. KDF was my champion, my namesake, with the great-hearted spirit of a winner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Oh, that's great. Kate, who knew that you were so diabolical? Jump stories, indeed. I'm like, whew, it takes a special skill, I think, to tell those, to get people to jump, and to actually listen to those. Huh. But good on you. And thank you, Kate.
Yes, thanks, Kate. You should have perhaps been in our Friday Fright Night show that was back in October, which our next storyteller was in, Simon Brooks, and he told a very spooky story. So go and have a listen to that. Now, Simon Brooks is my fellow Brit. He is on the other side of the country, though. Got to know him just through this pandemic. He has Conversations with Storytellers, which is a podcast with loads of storytellers. He has Friday with Friends. It's on Facebook, and just last week he had Jessica Robinson on, so I think you can still go back and listen to that. So she tells excellent story, and she talks about me, so obviously go and have a listen. He's also in TBD Storytellers, and they do a free show. I think you have to register it, and that's going to be on tomorrow night. So they have fabulous stories, so go and check that out. And then just look for Simon Brooks on any social media, because he's a fabulous storyteller. So here he is, Simon Brooks. So welcome, Simon. Welcome to our anniversary show. We're delighted to have you on.
I'm delighted to be here.
My fellow Brit. Yes. So we're going to start off, and I want to know, because I always like to know this, what's your most disastrous or hilarious or challenging storytelling moments so far?
I would say the biggest was probably when I was at Jonesborough and I was sharing the stage with Carmen Didi. I was opening up for her. And I was going through this story called The Three Feathers. It's an Austrian story. And the dragon sorcerer and his wife were at the end of a meal, and the dragon sorcerer was going to be put to sleep with the sleeping potion that his wife was going to give him. He wasn't aware of this. And so she unbuttles a cork, and she takes a glass of wine and fills up with the one glass, and then she takes the second glass and puts that down, and then she gets the tiny glass vial with the sleeping potion in, and she puts that on. And then I realize that she put the sleeping potion in both of the drinks, which wasn't going to work. So I'm panicking, and I take the glasses, and I have the character, well, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to get rid of those. And she throws them into the sink, sets them down, and does it all. And she does it all again. But she only puts the sleeping potion in the one glass. Now that's going to work a lot better now. And off she goes to the dragon sorcerer. And I was absolutely petrified, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've done it wrong, and I've got to redo it. But the audience, they were absolutely super generous and totally rolled with me. So it worked out really well. But it was a heart-stopping moment.
But you make the best sound effects, so I probably enjoyed having that happen all over again.
Yeah, maybe. I hope so, yes.
Simon, yes. You tell a lot of folk tales, fairy tales, etc. And just curious, what is your favorite type of story to tell, either in that genre or other genres?
I do relish the long stories, the longer ones, where there's more journey, there's more depth to them. And it can be like a 40-minute story, but it can also be a 15, 20-minute story. I just like the adventure stories so much. with lots of different things going on and lots of characters, because you can put all sorts of sound effects, and you also taking the people, the audience that you're telling the story to on a journey with you, and that's always fun.
Yeah, it's like reading a really good, deep, long novel that you can really dig into. Yeah, absolutely.
So Simon, can you describe your perfect day to us, say in under 30 seconds?
My perfect day, I get up, I take a shower, I take the dog for a walk. I would then pack my car full of stuff that I need to take with me to a gig. I would then shower and change. I put on my tie and my vest, and I would drive to a gig for a school that doesn't have very much money, and I would perform for the whole day there. And I come back home, and that would be the, driving back through the sunset. That would be the perfect day for me.
Presumably to have lovely dinner with your wife and kids, though.
Well, if they're around, yes.
Don't leave them out, Simon.
Simon, if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
That's easy. I would be able to take all my gear and fly all over the Western world, telling stories to communities, schools and libraries that are economically challenged, and be able to perform for them as often as possible.
Oh, we'll have to think about what your special name is.
Super Simon Says.
Yeah. Oh. Wow. Excellent. We'll find you a sponsor, and then we'll get you going around the world. Super Simon Says.
Got it. Have a t-shirt.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then one last one, which I don't have to translate. Loo roll, over or under?
Over, because I don't like my hand knocking against the wall.
Particularly in public loos, eh?
Especially in public loos. Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Simon, for being a fabulous guest and a fabulous storyteller.
Well, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it. I love hanging out with you guys. It's great.
Oh, thank you. We love you too.
And I like Mr. Tech Guy too, but he's not around that often, is he?
No, we keep Tech Guru hidden away.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Simon.
Pull a funny face when I play the baron, so bear with me. Once upon a time, there were 3 monks, and they went on a pilgrimage. At the end of the first day, they got to the top of the great mountain. And once they had made camp and got a fire going, the oldest monk said to the youngest monk, "Why don't you tell us a story?" Well, the youngest monk, he looked at the other two and said, "Once upon a time, a long time ago, there were 3 monks, and they went on this pilgrimage, and they came to the top of a great mountain. And after they made camp, and after they made a fire, the oldest monk said to them, 'Why don't you tell us a story?' And so the youngest monk, he looked at the other 2 monks, and he said, 'Once upon a time, a long time ago, there were 3 monks, and they went on a pilgrimage, and at the end of the first day, they got to the very top of the mountain, and they built a fire, and they built a camp. And then the oldest monk said to the youngest monk, "Why don't you tell us a story?" And the youngest monk, he said, "Well, once upon a time, a long time ago, there were 3 monks, and they went on a pilgrimage, and they traveled for far, 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 and at the end of the first day, they got to the top of a great mountain, and there they built a camp and a fire." And the oldest monk said to the youngest monk, "Why don't you tell us a story?"
Thank you, Simon. That's enough to make me go mad. But you do have the best sound effects ever, and I love all your funny voices. It's so brilliant. And for everybody out there, if you don't know Simon, he does lots of sound effects and different voices in all his stories. So go and check him out. As Super Simon Says, that's his new superpower. Anyway, thank you, and thank you, Simon.
Yes, thank you. How does that story end? I don't know. So next, I get to bring up someone. I'm very pleased to bring her up. She is a storyteller. She won our Story Slam on the theme of blame. And also she is a producer of a storytelling show, Better Said Than Done. And she just did a phenomenal Women's Storytelling Festival. It was 3 days of women telling stories. amazing. I don't know how she's even still standing. I think I would have had to take a nap for like 3 weeks after that, but amazingly, she is here with us. And I get to be the one to introduce her because I don't know what it is between her and Claire, but let me just say that between the two of them, I feel like they're like two teenage sisters that are just arguing over who. Claire, pipe it, okay? I'm just saying, this is the problem right here. You gotta. But it's me in the middle all the time. It's like la 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 la. Anyway, so I get to introduce her. I have no qualms at all with this woman. I think she's phenomenal, and I'm so happy that she's here. I think you're going to love her. If you don't know her already, please welcome Jessica Robinson.
Yay. So, hi, Jessica. Welcome back to 6 Feet Apart. It's lovely having you here.
It's lovely to be here.
Our fellow producer. So, Jessica, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what is your most disastrous, hilarious storytelling moment so far?
Yeah, a few years ago, we got invited, Better Said Than Done got invited to present our Roar True Tales of Women Warriors program, which is stories of women's empowerment and obstacles. So a lot of the stories are about sexual harassment, assault, discrimination. It tends to be fairly serious. And we got invited to present on the National Mall during an arts festival. So it was an outdoor presentation, which was great. And it was a huge honor, except that our stage was, of course, a platform in a muddy field. And then there was a stage directly behind us with like no barrier between us. And when it was my turn to go up and perform, behind me, so I'm telling a story about, it was a serious story about sexual assault in public outside. And behind me was a guy who was naked and doing an interpretive dance. I think the audience might have been a little distracted.
You couldn't have actually planned that, could you?
No, it was perfect in all the wrong ways.
Yeah. Jessica, during the pandemic, have you made any just wacky purchases, like spontaneous stuff that you bought and then you're like, why in the world did I buy that?
No. No, I haven't. I have not bought anything impractical at all. I've been incredibly boring. Yeah, other than we've been buying all our groceries and having them delivered. So, I mean, that's the only weird thing. And that has been disastrous just because they do not squeeze the melons, So we are getting some pretty bad produce, but otherwise.
So you wanted to, so you're, so you've got, your instructions are squeeze the melons.
That's what I was taught growing up. You should always squeeze the melons, no?
So Jessica, what piece of advice would you give from your wisdom, very wise, wisdomy self now to your younger self, who's possibly a little bit more foolish?
Oh my goodness. I would tell her to have a lot more fun than she did. I took life very seriously for no good reason. So yeah, definitely. And have more fun, be less serious, and I would be more emotionally open.
Oh, yeah, nice.
I think that's great advice. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
What would I want it to be, or what would it actually be?
I don't know. I guess I was thinking definitively, what would it be? I'm assuming that's what you'd want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'd want it to be something cool, like being able to, heal people or, fly. But what it would actually be would probably be organizing, meal planning for the week, and also running a business, and also writing and memorizing and performing multiple stories, on the East Coast and the West Coast in the same week. I think that's what my actual superpower would be, as lame as that is.
No, I think that's your superpower now. That's the whole thing. So I think that going with the flying or the whatever the fun stuff is, I think that's just fine. That's a great.
Or what you're really saying is that I am already a superhero.
I guess, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying, Jessica. You already are. We're so happy
you're a bit of a superhero.
Yeah, thank you
You
so
heard
much.
it here first, folks.
And then just one very last quick thing. Loo roll, over or under?
Oh, I will tell you, my husband has the driest sense of humor. And when we first started dating, he came, like when we started seriously dating, he came out of the bathroom one time and he said, "We have a problem. I don't like what you did with the toilet paper there." And I was like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" But he was just kidding. I am a whatever is easiest.
Oh.
Kind of like just a roll with it, but bump.
Oh, no. On that note, we're going to stop. Thank you, Jessica. It's been lovely having you as our co-producer friend and wonderful storyteller on our show. Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
After I got divorced, I signed up to run a marathon through Team in Training, partly to give myself something to do, but mostly because I figured training for a marathon would be a great place to meet guys. Of course, when I got to the first training run, it was all girls. And then I realized, well, yeah, of course, guys don't need help training to run a marathon, just like they don't need help with directions. But I was there, so I kept at it. I continued with my training, but the little problem is that Team in Training is a fundraising organization. So they train you to run a marathon, and then you have to raise money. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. And then my friend suggested that we should have a bachelorette auction, which I thought was awesome, not only because we could raise money, but then maybe I could meet some guys. So I went on MySpace. This is back in the day when you could look up single men in your area. And I found me some guys who agreed to be auctioned off for charity. And then there was this one guy that my friend who was helping me run the auction referred to as the sexy cowboy, because that's what his profile picture looked like. And he said he wouldn't be in the auction because he was shy, but he agreed to communicate with me. We'll just put it that way. We became MySpace friends and later Facebook friends. So I had the auction. I did not go home with any of the boys, even though I offered cash money, and then I ran the marathon, and it was all a bust as far as meeting guys goes. And then I started dating some guy randomly, not connected with the marathon. And after about 6 months, I got a little bored with him. So I signed up to run another marathon, not to meet guys so much as just to get away from the one I was with. And as I trained for that marathon, I eventually realized I should dump the boring guy, which was good timing because shortly after I dumped the boring guy, the sexy cowboy became available. And we finally, after 2 years, we finally had our first date the night before my next marathon, which is stupid because you're supposed to rest the night before you run a marathon. And it was a great date. It was, so good. Long story short, I did not sleep that night. And the marathon was extremely painful and very, very slow. But at the 18-mile marker, my sexy cowboy was standing there. And I ran up to him and I kissed him and I hugged him just like he was my boyfriend. And even though we'd only had one date, he didn't push me away. And this year we are celebrating our 10-year wedding anniversary. So my advice to you is if you want to meet a guy, sign up to train for a marathon.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. I don't know if I could run a marathon what am I saying? I'm married to my lovely wife. I guess I don't need to meet a guy, but that actually would have worked for me when I showed up to train and it was all women. That probably would have worked out for me quite well. But it worked out for you. So lovely. And we're lovely that you're here with us, that you've been with us, that you worked with us. We've learned a lot from you. And it's been wonderful.
I haven't learned anything, sorry.
Yeah, I know. We got to somebody mute that woman. Mute that woman. Okay. But thank you, Jessica. For those of you at home, waiting. We have just a few more to go, and then we're going to get to the blooper reel. We're into the home stretch here. So how uncomfortable can you be? You're in your pajamas on your couch, but thank you, Jessica.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. I am only teasing. I love you, really. And our next storyteller is the fabulous Kirk Waller, who is just an amazing storyteller. He spent a long time working with the Marsh for Tell It on Tuesday and lots of other things. He came on our show and told a fabulous traditional story back quite early on last year. He also came back and told a story in our Black Lives Matter show, and he actually made me tear up a little bit, so go and watch that. And he was an MC for our Stories in Living Colour that we did in association with the Storytelling Association of California. So that is definitely one to go and watch too. And luckily for Kirk, he got engaged over the pandemic, and he did a live showing of it on Facebook. So I got to see him asking his prospective wife to marry him. So that's fun. He's also gave great advice to his kids doing one of our stories. So go and check that out too. So no further ado, let's introduce our next storyteller, Kirk Waller.
Well, Kirk Waller, thank you so much for being here. We're excited to have you on our anniversary show. You've been such a great part of our first year at 6 Feet Apart Production. So we want to get to know you a little bit better. And I'd like to know, what type of stories do you enjoy telling the most? Do you have a preferred story?
Yeah, I do. It kind of evolved into something. But at first, when I first started telling stories, I totally wanted to tell stories from all over the world, which I started doing, which I still do. And I did not want to be looked at as like another African-American storyteller telling African-American stories. And I just wanted to just tell, world stories and something different and unique. And as I began to tell stories, I started falling in love with the African and African-American stories. And they just resonated. And it just was like, that's me, right? And so I could care less about, how I come across now, because those are the stories that absolutely speak to my heart. And I want to keep going. I want to keep the stories of the ancestors going. And I do tell stories from all over, and personal stories in different kinds as part of my repertoire. But I would say a good 60, 70%, a good chunk of those are the African tales or African-American stories.
It's nice when you actually find the ones that resonate with you the most.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. So following on from that then, have you got like a most memorable or disastrous or strangest storytelling moment?
If I remember right, it's probably a story about this family where there's a new mom, a new stepmom type of thing, and she has to earn the stepson's trust. And it's a really interesting, stirring, emotional wisdom tale. And so afterwards, I got a call or a letter from a teacher who was telling me that during the story, there's this little boy that was crying, and she thought something was wrong. Somebody hurt him or poked him or, something like that. And she put him aside and started talking to him. Turns out that his mom, I believe, had passed away, and which had happened in the story. And this whole kind of step family, blended family thing just resonated with him. And the story, I don't know if the story itself was a healing thing, but it was part of that journey. It opened doors and closed doors for him to let him know that he was not alone, and to let him know that things like this can have a good ending. And so for me, that was one of the most touching, sweetest kind of things, to let me know that even stories, even folk tales, even, tales that seem whimsical in some regards, can really touch us. And that's why stories are so powerful, because they are so universal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the power of storytelling.
I have a disastrous one.
Sure.
So this is early in my storytelling life, and that has something to do with how disastrous it was, combined with the fact that the librarian that invited me to tell stories made some choices that she probably regretted as well. So it was a Halloween show. And so I was telling the Halloween stories. Come tell some Halloween stories at our library. And, the kids will be there. They'll come. We'll invite them to have in costumes. So she was super enthusiastic. And I think she was probably pretty new as well. And so when I got there, there was a plate of Halloween cookies, these colorful, pumpkins and witches and cool stuff sitting right next to me. as I'm telling the story. I don't know what she was thinking, and I did not have the presence of mind at the time because I didn't know what was about to happen to say, oh, let's not do that. And so as this plate of cookies was right next to me, they wanted to make it as comfortable as possible in the library. So it was a comfortable setting, had a rug and stuff. So during the stories, every 30 seconds, a kid would get up and get cookies and, stumble and eating crumbs all over the place and sit down and get some more. And, it was horrible. Remember, I was kind of new, so I didn't have the poise to kind of keep going or stop or, talk about it. Right. It was so horrible. And afterwards, we both talked about it that, that probably didn't go as well as it could have. And she never had me back. and I never forgot about that because I've had a few instances afterwards where people had cookies or snacks. I'm like, have them in the back, cover them up. When I'm all done, open them up. That's the only way I'm going to do it. And so I learned, as good as I think I am, I'm not as good as cookies. And that was I love that story because it taught me a lesson, but it was just funny. We all have to have those.
Okay, we have one last silly question for you, Kirk, and that is toilet paper, over or under?
Over. Easy.
Yes. Thank you,
Not a silly question. Not a silly question.
Serious. It's a serious question. All right. Well, thank you, Kirk Waller. Always a pleasure and wonderful to get to know you a little bit better. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure, and thanks for all the work that you do, and thanks for doing this kind of anniversary show. It's great. So I have this short story, and it's an anniversary story. So I chose it just for this particular occasion. And so for those of you that know anything about me, I had a tragedy that happened early in my marriage. I'm really sad. My wife, just a few years at the time, we had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, came down with breast cancer, and she was dying. And I remember what was really strange in the midst of all the other stuff we had to deal with it was like we were standing vigil, and in her hospital room, myself, her mom, friends, family, probably 12 or so of us in a room. We'd been there all day praying, talking, visiting, supporting each other. And shortly after midnight, this was September 2nd, 2007. Shortly after midnight, my friend looks at her clock and she says, happy birthday, Kirk. She realized that September 3rd was my birthday, and she wasn't telling me happy birthday. She was kind of like asking me happy birthday just because it was, this is the strangest sort of situations. And so my wife did pass away later that morning. So she passed away on September 3rd, 2007. And people came to the house like they do in those situations. They brought food, they brought a birthday cake. It was really, really, really strange. And so, just kind of getting through all that. So fast forward to a year later, still, this was the process of learning this new life. I wanted to do something for me because my birthday was coming up, and I was either going to fall apart, with the anniversary coming up of her death, or I had to move forward. So I threw the biggest party for myself that I could possibly throw. I had friends, I had family. There's at least 50 people there, all piled in our house. I had like a big fat striped pet tiger that we had for a centerpiece. We had animal prints and African prints on the wall. We had safari hats. We had tiki torches in the backyard. I made my own cake with like 2 or 3 layers and a river running down. I had animals on it. And it was so much fun celebrating life. And it was a way of honoring the time that I had with her and a way of making a decision to celebrate and move forward. So that's my anniversary story. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. I'm so sorry about your wife, but it's so lovely that the news that you've found new love. So I'm very happy about that. And the best line ever, I'm not as good as cookies. I'm gonna take that on. I'm not as good as cookies. Brilliant. Now, before we introduce our last storyteller, I want to just give a shout out to some people in the YouTube audience who've stuck with us. So well done. Give yourself a pat on the back and a large glass of wine. So we've got Jane Dorfman, we've got Catherine Delaney, we've got Misty Mator. Thank you, Misty, for coming, even though I pushed you into it. Jane Dorfman, we've got Anne-Marie Trester, Claire Castell, who was on Jessica's show just last week. I'm sure you can go and watch that if you want to. We've got some amazing people coming, and you've been so lovely making all the comments in the YouTube, because it's really lovely for the storytellers to go back and have a look at them afterwards, and for us too. So thank you so much, and thank you for being with us all this time. We're very grateful.
And as Claire said, we are coming up to our last interview, and we have a few short things after that. So hang on there, hang on for that blooper reel. And of course, the interview with the tech guru, never seen before. But our next storyteller, he was on one of our first shows, and he's been on since then as well. And I love him because he's just, he's seems very soft-spoken and unassuming. I think Bill Lepp said that he looks like he might be in finance. But when he starts to tell a story, he just transforms into this animated, amazing vessel of story. So please, everyone, enjoy Brandon Spars.
Yes.
Brandon Spars, welcome to 6 Feet Apart, our anniversary show. We're so pleased to have you here. We've had you on the show a couple times, and it's been such a joy. And you have told some fascinating stories, many that involve traveling around the world. So my first question to you is, where is the most exotic place that you've been to, or unusual place, that has brought about a brilliant story?
That's a great question. I would have to say, and this comes immediately to mind, I lived for 2 years on an atoll. Now, that's not an island. That is it was once an island, but the island sinks back into the ground because on the floor of the ocean, and it leaves this strip of coral reef that people live on, and it's 100 feet across and 37 miles long. And so there's one road going down the middle of it. You can drive around and back. You just turn around and go back on the same road. Mile markers, your address is lagoon side or ocean side. And the drinking water is hilarious because it comes from the airport. It isn't flown in. It lands with the torrential rains on the runway, and they've tilted the runway so that it runs into this big catch system, and that's our drinking water. I had chunks of asphalt. I'm sure there's plane fuel. It was really quite something.
Lots of aviation fuel, which is always very good for you, obviously.
Yeah.
How hilarious. So tell us, Brandon, during the pandemic, I know that you've been teaching from home, but have you made any crazy, mad purchases during the pandemic that you either regret or think they were amazing?
I think the marketers are getting really good at targeting people because, you know, I've set up this area to teach in my corner of the house. And then I saw for sale this contraption. It would raise up and down. It would expand out and back. It had levers. It had shelves. It had clamps. And it was for your computer. And you could put it at any angle. And you could attach your cables to it. There was room for books and everything. It looked like the perfect thing for someone teaching at home. And so I bought it. It was $36.99. And turned out to be a total scam. The money, you know, we sent it out there. We never got it. We've been writing to this address. Nobody answers. It was somebody just preying on all the teachers who are teaching from home.
Okay, Brandon, another question. I love this question. I hope you do as well. And that is, if you could have dinner with 4 people, living or dead, who would they be?
That is such a great question. And my first answer is, I've been teaching US history for the first time. And I began teaching the writings of W.E.B. Du Bois. And Sheila Arnold has told me exactly how to pronounce that. Seems like everybody pronounces it W.E.B. Du Bois, but she said it should be Du Bois. And he was a writer in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and he founded the NAACP as well. And he just has these amazing analyses of racial interactions, racial justice and injustice. And so I would just love to have dinner with him because I've been spending so much time reading his works. And then second is a pair, and that would be the people I consider to be representative of who I think our country wants to be, and that is Michelle and Barack Obama. I would really, really like to have dinner with them. My daughter was actually able to meet Barack Obama at a conference, and she had a little chat with him, and I know it's going to be one of the greatest moments of her life. Aww. And finally, my family's from Missouri. We say Missouri. And I have to say, I think maybe my greatest aspiration would be to have dinner with Mark Twain. I just think there wouldn't ever be a dull moment in the conversation.
Nice. Well, that would make a very interesting dinner table, let me tell you.
I think so.
Okay, one last question, very quick. Toilet paper, otherwise I call it loo roll, over or under?
Oh, I find under is better because you can really snatch it. You get a good angle on it, and you can use all your fingers to rip it.
We like it over, but you make a very strong, compelling case, Brandon. So good on you for that.
Thank you, Brandon. It's been lovely getting to know you a bit better. And
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing your story in a minute.
Thank you. Exactly a year ago, right at the beginning of this pandemic, when we moved to online learning, I remember my first class. There were my students, their faces brightly lighting up 20 Zoom squares, their names written beneath them. And then something strange happened. A mysterious person joined the room. Chud. Their camera was off, so it was just a dark square. Chud, can you turn your camera on? I asked. It remained eerily silent. What's Chud? One student asked, and one Googled it and found the first thing that came up was a horror movie from the 70s, cannibalistic human-eating underground dwellers. Now, I had heard of Zoom bombers, and I became immediately alarmed. Chud, can you use the chat? Eerily silent. And so I removed him. Now, this went on 2 or 3 days in a row, and it reached a climax in my office hours when Chud appeared. You've got to stop coming to our class, I said. Get out of here, you jerk. And Chud did something very strange. Because of a bad connection, probably, Chud was leaving, but also joining at the same time. And what I saw were 2 Zoom squares that said Chud. This is the part of the horror movie where the music becomes eerie, where you cut the head off the monster and 2 more grow back, where you've barricaded yourself in the closet to find the killer is in there with you. I reached for the first thing that was on my desk. It was a Giants ball game spirit horn. And with 3 sonic blasts right into the camera, Chud departed, never to come back. Turns out this was no monster. This was no Zoom bomber. It was simply a confused student with the wrong link who had become quite frightened, understandably. Our dean cleared it up. And of course, all of the apologies were made. Chud turned out to be their parents' account. Their parents work for the California Housing and Urban Development Office.
my God, Brandon, oh my God, that's just funny. That's hilarious. That's the best. I think that's the best Zoom bomb story that I've heard. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. And thank you, Brandon.
Thank you. And I just love you, Brandon. All your stories are so enthusiastic. It's fantastic. And the best arm movements. Now, our next storyteller has been with us since the beginning. She was on our third show. She's come to virtually all our shows. We love her to pieces, and we were so thrilled to have her come and tell a short 2-minute story. Actually, it's only a 1-minute story. She just was in and out there really quick, and it's a surprising story. So I'm going to not say any more and just welcome Neshama Franklin.
So there I was, on the stage, essentially stark naked except for a G-string. What was I, a mother of toddlers, doing there? Well, I was about to do the hippie dance of love, because my dance teacher, he also had toddlers, and he needed to turn coin. And he figured out that he could go down to North Beach in San Francisco and pitch this nightclub owner. He said, look, the tourists want the psychedelic experience, but it's scary in real life. So they can sit here clutching their drinks and we can bring it to them. And so for that crazy summer, there we were. I was getting paid for doing what I loved to do, improvisational dance. And the only proviso was that we had to end up in close proximity with almost no clothes on. And it went on till the summer of love was over. And it's long over now. But you should know that you see an old lady with frizzy gray hair, you have no idea what she's really been up to.
No, Charlotte, that's such an excellent story. You never know with your lovely sweet face that you're quite a racy past. And if you want to see more of Neshama's story, she's on lots of different shows virtually. She's definitely a very active storyteller in the Bay Area. So we're thrilled to have her on our show. Thank you, Neshama.
Yes, thank you. And now this is truly our last interview, and we're very pleased to bring up our tech guru. Now, 6 Feet Apart Productions has a lot of bells and whistles. We have amazing things like the fact that we're in these little squares, and we've got a little 6, and we got a little cake. And if I say donation, then magically the link for the donations for our storytellers appears like that. And it is magic. I have no idea how it happens. Apparently involves lots of code and HTML and other acronyms and words that I don't understand. But thankfully we have a tech guru who can do it all. Yes. And so I'm gonna let the story and the interview speak for itself. This is a rare opportunity for those of you who have stuck around to actually get a peek inside the amazing brain of our tech guru, Mark Hennessy. Mark Hennessy, welcome to 6 Feet Apart Productions. Although you've been a part of it since the beginning, you are our tech guru, as it says right there on your shirt, in case we forget. And in case the folks at home are wondering why they're not seeing your face, we've had to hide it because we know you're sought after by the Russian mafia. So we're going to keep you identity hidden. But we're so happy you decided to come out from your lair and answer a few questions for us, get to know you a little bit better, because 6 Feet Apart couldn't be the show that it is without you. So let's find out a little bit more about Mark Bug Hennessy, evil tech lord, genius, bongo player extraordinaire. Mark, what is one of your most memorable or disastrous moments as tech guru for 6 Feet Apart Productions?
Well, that's a great question. I would say probably the most disastrous and memorable is one of the earliest shows we had where we had the wrong stream key to stream to YouTube, and we started off, and because everything's scripted, we went through something like about 45 seconds before I could tell everyone we have to start again.
I know that was a bottom clenching moment. I remember it well. Now, listen, you are my superhero, but if you were gifted superhero powers, what would they be?
Oh, superhero powers. I think I'd want to be known as Cloner. And I would simply like to clone myself so that I could have my clone do your shows.
How wise.
That'd be great. I love that. That's a good. I would like to clone myself so that my other self could make dinner every night for my kids. That would be good. Mark, if you could have dinner with 4 people, living or dead, who would you choose to sit down and nosh with?
I'm really into music, and that's one of my favourite sort of hobbies, pastimes, listening, playing to music. So I would want to have dinner with Jim Morrison from The Doors, Arthur Lee from the band Love, David Allen from the band Gong, and Janis Joplin from Big Brother and the Holding Company. Those would be my 4.
Of course they are. Of course they are. Anybody who knows the tech guru knows about his music tastes. And then we've got one last question for you. Obviously, you've got to get this right, otherwise you're in big trouble. Lou roll, over or under?
None. No, seriously, over.
Yeah. He's been trained well.
Well, at least you both know what loo roll is, since you're both from the other side of the pond. So, and you know to put it on over. So it must be a marriage made in tech loo heaven.
There we go. Yes, absolutely. And congratulations on your first anniversary.
Yay! Happy birthday, us!
Yeah, thank you, Bug. We could not have done it without you.
No, we couldn't.
Thank you.
Yay! Yay! You have made it! You have made it! We are moments away from that blooper reel. Everybody's hung in for. Appreciate everyone who's hung in on YouTube. Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in with us for a year. Our next show is going to be on April 14th. It is an open mic story slam. So names in the hat, names out of the hat. We're only going to put 30 names in the hat. So good chance you might get your name pulled. So join us for that. I see the Tech Genius has put the tip information up again. So as I said, we will follow up with that as well in case, again, you're at the point where you just can't write it down. I understand completely. Thank you so much. And as I said, it's just been a great year. April 14th for our next show. And beyond that, who knows? As things open up, we may do some in-person shows, but we'll continue to do some virtual shows as well. Thanks, Bug, for putting up the ad for the open mic. And our featured storyteller will be Nestor Gomez of Moth Legend. So look forward for that.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for staying with us, for being here for not just for this very long show, I must admit, with lots of hat changes. I've been told that the best hat that people like is this hat. So I'm going to wear this to sign us out. Oh, can I get it on? Yes, I can. I can get it on. So this is the hat that I've had the most comments about. Goes with my hair, apparently. Lovely. So anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching tonight, and everybody who's ever bought a ticket or come to a show or seen a show. We can't tell you that it's been really, we're just so appreciative of that. Thank you. And now we're going to have our blooper reel. So this is just funny bits and pieces that we put together that made us laugh, made me laugh particularly. Hope nobody will be offended. And here we go. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
I feel so alone in my apartment. All right. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens.
I'm going to turn off my screen because these are very odd times for all of us. I know this is completely hokey. There we go.
Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first storyteller. Oh, wait, there is one further ado I have to do.
I don't have a mirror, and I've never cut my hair before in my life.
I'm going to drink a toast right now to your Nana. All right, so here we go.
That's for her, okay?
He'd reverse in and then he would just bump each car forward and back until he got the space big enough that he could actually fit the bloody car. And we'd look at him in horror. He goes, well, that's what bumpers are for.
Oh, she's not unmuted yet.
Oh, you ain't unmuted yet, Miss Diane.
Not unmuted yet, Miss Diane.
Hotter than Billy be damned, which I never quite understood because I didn't know who Billy was or why he was damned or why that was a good measure of the temperature.
That's an ominous sound, huh?
And was the sound of the swoop of his mighty leg, and then pop as he kicked the cat straight up into the tree.
What I thought would be a really fun thing to do for Pride. So just out there and fabulous.
That's not a good question for me.
Keep it long on top.
Oh, go JP.
Oh, go JP.
To the county fairs throughout the Midwest. About, oh my God.
That's not a good question either.
I kept hearing a cat, but to this day, I never saw that cat. I don't know where Mittens is.
What's that? Oh, apparently I've already drank a toast to my mom. So let me drink to my grandmother. Okay, to my grandmother. Cheers.
What's the point of having one feather boa when you can have two, darling? Two feather boas. So obviously, doubly fabulous.
Wait, hang on just 1 second. Give me a bit. All right, it's really good for cutting up a chocolate bar. I can relate to that story.
No, that's really a dumb question.
What? Okay, apparently I've already toasted to moms and grandmothers. So, stepmoms, everybody, let's raise one for stepmoms.
So I can't see the back, so I think I've given myself a mullet.
You get a bunch of Depression era women together and you put them in a place where there's free breadsticks, it's going to be off the hook.
Everybody get ready to jump.
Little round-headed man on the barrel holding a pen that's got a little-headed man from Georgia going round the bend.
This is possibly the weirdest thing I've ever done on film.
And you like stories
from a guy named Corey. That's my song for Sarah Armstrong.
Thank you. This is not part of the show, right?
No.
Okay, good.
6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.